Before we dive into the video, a quick word from our sponsor, TradeStation. As tape readers, we rely heavily on TradeStation for their time and sales. TradeStation offers ATC students an account representative, zero in commission, and a cash reward with qualifying deposits. Now back to the video. Hello and welcome to the ATC podcast. This is our number 6 podcast. We've been away from this series for quite some time, maybe a few weeks now. We were at OnSite in Orlando. We were in person trading together, some great lessons there. And then before that, we had a couple weeks of classes where we were in, hours of classes a day using a live market. So we've been away for some time. Looking forward to getting back in the rhythm with these. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rich Lepis. He's CEO and head instructor of Ahead of the Charts. It's awesome having you on a webcam, Rich.
How's it going? It's interesting because, we talk about setting habits all the time, and this is just so against what my habits are. So
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, but I got to show my face every once in a while, right?
It's been a long time coming, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So a few announcements before we really jump into today's topics was we're going to have a lot more face presence moving forward. So we're going to do a lot more of podcast, a lot more of live trading stuff. So you can expect a whole new genre of content from us as well. And then also we have nightly reviews. So those are pretty much every single night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're free at the moment for anyone. We don't know how long that will stay free, but feel free to join, invite people, anybody that's interested in day trading in terms of tape reading, just feel free to sit in, listen. You don't have to participate or speak. So that's kind of the end of that announcement. And going to today's topic.
Just before you do continue, they've just been invaluable. I mean, to sit there with a record and actually be able to break down these trades, you can just see, between what you're just talking about with OnSite and then talking about, these night reviews, just the night and day that you see from the students that have really jumped into it and just allowed it to help. It's just been unbelievable. So phenomenal job, Dave.
It's been such great collaboration because, I mean, when we watch it back, the recordings, right, it feels like the tape is so much slower than it is in real time. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but whenever, we're trading live, things seem to go a lot quicker. But when we break it down piece by piece, it just all makes sense. And it's such a valuable lesson just to have that. And then the conversations like in the market that we expand on as well is just, it's priceless.
Well, it's those little things that sometimes you might miss. And when you force yourself, and this is why I love it, because it's almost forcing yourself to go back and rewatch it. It's just like a movie. You could watch a movie once and think you knew everything about it, but then you watch it again and you start to see those intricacies that are happening that you didn't notice the first time. And it's the same exact thing. So like I said, I don't use the word invaluable lightly. It really is.
Yeah, and it makes it a lot more bearable to journal almost, because I know journaling can be boring. You're sitting there by yourself, typing away and creating these journals. But when you're doing it live and chatting with others, the lessons just kind of are ingrained in a different part of your mind, and it just makes it a lot more fun. So.
And one of the big things too is you're going to notice that a lot of the things that you thought or that you missed, other people did too. We all want to be perfect, but there's no such thing as perfect in trading. There's no 100% trade. So it almost, again, it forces you to go back and find those intricacies and really see yourself, like, what did I think at this moment? And then when someone comes in and tells you something completely different, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So when you go into tomorrow, you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah, you're seeing a new value and you're seeing new insights that your brain probably didn't perceive, even from classes too. Sometimes you skip over some material and it's so relevant in those specific trades. And also thank you for coming to those nightly reviews as well. I know you've been attending them pretty consistently, and I mean we call it the night shift because it's literally another shift at work. So appreciate you coming on and giving that insight. Like I can visualize and picture the lessons from the previous weeks and this week, and I can pick stocks today that we've seen the same exact examples, not only from the tape, but also personalities.
And that's where consistency comes from.
Yeah. So jumping into the on-site topic, so it's been evident that our students have taken so much from on-site. Just the conversation in the chat room from before on-site to post on-site has been vastly different. The way stocks are broken down, the way the intentions of the market maker is broken down, the tape within itself, just the variables that we talk about and the trades that specifically, we break down, the market makers that we're following, everything seems so much more clear after onsite. And I kind of want to ask from your perspective as our head instructor, you've been doing this for such a long time, and I wanted to see, kind of dive into your mind of what did you take away from onsite? What was your biggest takeaway? Maybe it was how the way you perceive students. Maybe it's a different way to teach students. Maybe it's something you learned about us. I kind of want to dive into your mind and your aspects of what did you come out onsite with? What value did you take home?
So before I even get into that, I do want to say that it's not even just the way that after the students that came back from onsite, it's not even just the way that they think about it. It's actually the results.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about, we have traders putting out there their first $4 day, and and I say $4 because I don't care about what shares are. It's always going to come down to dollars and cents.
Right.
100 shares to 200 shares. It's really about understanding the trade, and that's what came out of it is them actually understanding what was happening rather than guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many schools out there, there's so many videos out there. What happens is that you think you might know, but you're not really sure, and it really kind of clarified things. And on my way home, so I actually drove from South Carolina to Florida. So on
Mm-hmm.
our way home, I sat there and I was just trying to kind of interpret everything that I saw, and it brought me back to a day. So my daughter's got a little Lamborghini, okay, one of those little like 12 volts,
Yeah.
drive, and she knows, she's smart enough. She's 3 years old. She's gonna be 4 in May, and she's smart enough to know that what reverse and going forward is. So at one point, she's driving down the street and she's just crashing into the curbs. And I kept saying, no, you have to put it in reverse when you're near the curb. You can't keep going straight. But until I actually went to her and I took her hand and I put it on the throttle
Mm-hmm.
and showed her, this is forward, this is backwards. Until I actually did it with her, it was, she couldn't get it. And she understood all the concepts. She just didn't really get it until I put my hand there. So when I was driving home, I was thinking about that. And the big thing about onsite, unfortunately, I wish we could do it every single week, but as we know,
Yeah.
across the United States, across all different countries, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and everybody there. There's nothing like having somebody to hold your hand and actually show you what's going to go on. So that was one of the biggest things. I almost forgot because with everything that's been going on in the world, I almost forgot how important onsite really is. We talked about this last night. There was a student that said, it's expensive and I could spend this on classes that would last me a lot longer. And I almost accepted that in my head
Mm-hmm.
until after onsite. We remember that there's nothing ever going to be like, that your dad coming up and putting your hand on the throttle and telling you what what forward and reverse is. And I take everything that happened and just the immediate result that comes from that, because there's nothing like hands-on.
Now, there's nothing quite like it. For whatever reason, it's not like you taught us any new information. We've been hitting the same information over and over in terms of the tape, our 1 through 4 setups, our personalities. Everything has been consistent. So it wasn't like we came and learned brand new information how to trade. All of us had some previous experience with classes and being in the courses. So we had a background with tape reading and the 1 through 4. So when we got there, it's not like you were teaching us information, but rather we were just live trading. We were like being at the desk with you, live trading with you, which was,
And again, and
yeah.
that's the example. The best example that came into
Mhm.
my head
Yeah.
was, you got hands-on. It's happening there. So when you might have thought, you might hear something, we all interpret things completely different, but when
Yeah.
somebody's in front of you showing you that, it's honestly, a lot of the students that came back, it's almost like they got 6 months of classes in 2 days.
Oh yeah. And it shows. It feels like our students have just been propelled forward so drastically.
Mhm.
So in terms of teaching, I know recently as well with the night reviews, you've been kind of holding off towards the end to really give us feedback and insight on the stocks that we've broken down. How has your teaching changed, or how have you been shaped by OnSite moving forward for future courses?
So one of the biggest things, the longer that you do this tape reading is following market makers and is understanding what a market maker's game plan is going to be and allowing ourselves to understand that, but then formulate a trade to almost be encapsulated by what that game plan is. Because
Hmm.
as we know, tops and bottoms aren't for us. So when we find a game plan that someone needs to make $4, out of those $4, we really at the end of the day only need to make $2.40. I
Hmm.
always say 60 cents per dollar, because at the end of the day, you give 20 cents to the upside, you give 20 cents to the downside. But tops and bottoms just aren't meant for us. But it really brought me back to understand. I've been doing this for over 11 years now. So I forget the beginning of the journey sometimes.
Hmm.
And what it allowed was for me to go back and understand what the thought process of that retail side is. Because just as much as following market makers, we have to be able to actually follow them, we have to understand that they're trying to take money from retail. There's a reason 93% of people fail in trading. And it's because they set you up to make something look perfect. We've all made that statement before. There's somebody that's right behind us that's watching us as we're trading, and they know exactly what's going to happen. So I've learned so much about retail and the way that people are thinking, which is going to translate into our next classes, because
Hmm.
I can't teach everything at it, by doing this for 11 years. It has to go back to basics.
Right.
And bringing it back to the basics makes it so much easier to understand when a market maker is actually going to be trying to take people's money from them. So it was almost like a refresher course in everything I went through in the beginning, that
Hmm.
time kind of heals. We made this joke at OnSite. Imagine as a traders
Yeah.
if we feel the scars on our skin based off of the trades that we've taken. I mean, we would all look like Freddy Krueger. So coming almost back into the trenches side of things and understanding how people think versus how I think allows me to go back and really be able to hit those points to get them to that 11-year period a lot quicker.
Yeah, because students often, I mean, we all make the same exact mistakes, right? And it's all kind of in the beginning. It's like you're not cutting your losers to start, right? Okay, you've overcome that, and then your 1 through 4s, you're not really analyzing the personality for the proper trade within what the market maker's intentions are. So all the, obstacles are very, very similar with all of us. So I mean, obviously you're at a lot more advanced level, so it's a lot harder to put yourself back in the shoes of the mistakes that you once made, because you're at the point where you've crafted yourself to not to make those mistakes because those scars have healed, right? So
Hmm.
in
So
terms of
besides the icebreaker, which is
yeah,
probably one of my favorite parts, which you'll understand if you ever come to OnSite. Okay, but one of the biggest takeaways that I took is that after we were done with our morning trades and the market slowed down, we went around the room and we talked about what is your biggest problem in trading.
hmm
And for most people, because we had to have a journaling class first, because if
yep,
you're not journaling, but most people don't know what their biggest problem is. So I put a lot of people on the spot. And the funny part is that every single person in that room, when someone said, "This is my biggest problem," they're like, "Oh shit, that's my problem too."
hmm
And then the next person had a different problem. "Oh, that's my problem too." It's all the same. We all, as traders, go through the same things over and over again. And that's another huge beneficial point of being in a group and just being live and be able to sit there just at a table. Some of the best classes that we had on our OnSite, honestly, were a cocktail hour where
hmm
everyone's sitting at a table and just talking about their war stories and talking about the things that have happened. But we've all been through it. I've never met a trader that just
hmm
said, "Yeah, I started trading and I'm successful." That's how it works. No, we have to go through these hurdles in order to get where we need to
hmm
be. And if you notice, when we went around that room, we're talking about 15 people all saying their problems. Every
hmm
single person had the same problem. There
yeah.
wasn't a special problem that doesn't exist, that no someone was like, "Oh, I never thought about." No, it's all the same type of stuff.
Yeah, and you can notice how everybody got so uncomfortable when you asked, "What's your biggest problem?" Like, I feel like it took a lot of time for people just to really sit down, like, what truly is my problem? And I think as traders, if we really want to progress, you have to know your problems and they have to be so in front of you, right? You have to have such a grasp on what is holding you back to get to that trader that you need to be. And if you don't have a grasp on the problems that are holding you back, then you're floating.
Exactly. So your problems need to become focuses.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just let your problems continue and they don't become a focus, you're going to tread water. If you're lucky.
Right.
Otherwise, you're down stuck.
Yeah. Then you won't make it very far.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the one thing I've definitely noticed with those problems. And I think for some people it was the problem was the fact that they didn't even know their problems. Like
Yeah.
if
And you know what was funny? So Doug was sitting in the back corner, and after everyone was done, do you remember what he said?
I
You're
can't
all
remember.
lying.
Yeah.
So when I did one-on-one, so I always, as you know, on onset, I always do one-on-ones, and I sit down and really break down what's going on with someone's trading. But the reason everyone was lying is because they weren't really focused on their problems.
Exactly.
The days that are really bad, they don't want to journal. The days that are really good, don't feel I need to journal. And that's a huge problem because you need to know every aspect. We're running a business here. Yeah, our business is trading, but it's the same as any other business. Any
Mhm.
business that you don't know your numbers, you're going to end up failing. You have to know your numbers. So when I put people on the spot, you could tell that most people haven't really thought, what's my biggest problem? But the way to really get to where you need to be is to focus. So what's my biggest problem?
Mhm.
Now it becomes a focus. And I can set a game plan. But if I don't know that, how can I have any game plan?
Yeah.
If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. It's that simple.
You got to expose yourself in trading. I think you can't lie to yourself and have think you're gonna have success. It just doesn't last long. You truly and genuinely have to expose every aspect of your trading, what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. And I think the beauty of our community and with these night shift reviews, you can come with your issues and problems, and you have people at different scales in terms of their progress with tape reading and this methodology that have been through those problems before and can direct you towards the solution for that. And then on top of that, you also do trading exchanges where people are sending in the things that they see. So there's a lot of resources when you truly define what the problem that you have is. And when you define it, you ask the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, then you find the answers that lead to getting you the trader that you want to be.
To now it's second nature instead of a focus anymore because you identified it and you're able to fix
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you don't identify, it's just like trading a stock. There could be a stock with the best prints in the world, but all of a sudden it's not really trading anymore. If you don't identify that it's
Mhm.
not trading and you try to trade that, you're just going to get caught up in a consolidation or a
Yeah.
slow, up and down type floating move. So it all comes, together.
It all comes full
It's
circle.
full circle, exactly. It's
Yeah.
all full circle. Yeah.
So kind of transitioning off of that is what characteristics, I know we have veteran traders, we have like 3 or 4 of them now that have been with you for quite some time. So you've seen all the progression of someone that's just starting off that has no idea what a time and sell is, no idea what a matrix is, you know, all they know is a chart and ticker symbol. And you've seen people on the other side of the spectrum, like Doug, where he's just so advanced with his reads and his ability to understand what the market maker's intentions are. So, what characteristics within students have you seen that truly stand out for them to really get to the place that they want to be as quickly as possible?
So as humans, the way that we were made by whoever you believe made us, we're
Hmm.
not going to get into religion or anything like that, but we're all programmed very similar. And we actually had a conversation at OnSite about different sides of the scale. So but we all think similar unless you go really far out from the scale. And then you have geniuses and
Hmm.
but most people, are pretty normal. So the biggest thing that I've ever seen is the acceptance of psychology within the market.
Mm.
And when I say it's not understanding psychology in the market, it's the acceptance that psychology is number one. Understanding that I have to figure out who's behind the other side of those numbers on time and sales. Because all the time, I see people, they put trading books out there.
Hmm.
They'll be reading a trading book or read about what this person did or what this person did. And that's great and all. I'm not, going against reading or learning stuff like that. But really what it comes down to is understanding yourself.
Mm.
Okay? Discipline is the number one factor that you need. And the reason that it is because you don't even have to be that well disciplined in order to become a great trader. But there's certain things that discipline is just, you can't go without it. For instance, cutting losers. I told everybody in that room, If you don't cut your losers and have a set game plan of exactly how much you're willing to lose, you will fail at this. And you're better off failing than treading water, because otherwise, you go 10 years from now and you're still in the same exact spot. But it's the psychology that comes behind. First, we have to learn the logic of market makers and the psychology behind them. But what that does is it makes ourselves transparent. So from that point, because once you learn how to day trade, does anything change?
Nothing changes. No, same setups we saw today were yesterday.
If you're going to be a tape reader, once you learn how to tape read, there's nothing new that is going to come out. It's been the same since the history of time, since the tape has been out there. Okay, so there's nothing new. So you have to think about it. If I understand the logic and I understand what needs to happen, but I'm still not where I need to be, who is it? What's happening? And it always comes down to the psychology of you, understanding who you are as a person. Let's talk about beginner, mistakes that they make. Okay, so holding a trade past your loser. Why do we hold? Because we don't want to be wrong. So we have to understand that it's okay to be wrong. You can be filthy rich being 70% if you cut your losers. But what does that mean? What does 70% mean? That means I have to be wrong 3 times out of 10. And that acceptance. We come from a world that, especially most of us that are trading, we come from a history of having success in our lives, whether it be in sports, whether it be in schooling, whether it be, in anything. So when in the beginning part, when we fail, we take it as we're failing. Or the great traders in their beginning, they take it as they're failing. And unfortunately, ignorance is bliss. Unfortunately, a lot of us that take that as failing, it's because we're used to just getting something. But when we're used to that, we focus on the fact that we think we're failing instead of figuring out what's the psychology behind. Why is my mind doing these things that I know I shouldn't? Because the lessons are black and white to a certain extent. Obviously, there's no such thing as black and white in trading, but the rules themselves, 1 through 4 trades, are pretty much black and white. So if something's going wrong, it's not the rules. It's not the tape. The guy that bought to make money is not wrong. It's not the market's fault. It's not the market's rigged. It's the acceptance of I have to better myself psychologically in order to really get this. And that's the biggest factor I've ever seen. The best traders I've ever met in my entire life, they don't care about how much they make. That's not even a thought in their mind. Their thought process is, how much can I lose? How much could I possibly lose on this upcoming trade? And that comes with a game plan. And then the psychology behind who the person actually is what inevitably molds that. Now, the second part, so psychology is going to be number 1 all day long, but the second part's habits. I talk about this all the time. Habit is everything. OnSite, one of the best things that ever happened was that we had one trade at 50, we had one trade at 1250, both psychological numbers. Both trades were exactly the same.
Same trade.
Just different numbers.
Yeah.
Same price, everything was exactly the same. So habit, consistency. So many of us, I say this in the chat room all the time. What time every single day, no matter, without fail, unless, I'm not going to be there that day. What time am I in the chat room at?
8:15.
8:15 doesn't ever change. I say hello all every morning, every single morning at 8:15.
Yep.
So trading is just, it's a multitude of habits. That's all it really is, because once you learn how to tape read and you understand the concept and the methodology behind tape reading, there's nothing that changes. It comes down to us now. It's almost like, I can't tell you how many people I've tried. It's like, I knew I shouldn't have done this, but I did it anyway. It's because it wasn't second nature. It wasn't a habit at that point. So building the habits within trading, even if it's just being up at the same time in the morning, okay, and chipping away, because there's no such thing as just building a habit. It's not like I can say that I'm impatient and tomorrow I'm not going to be impatient, but I can chip away with it by making small habits.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another huge factor. You'll notice even,
Yeah.
the people that are successful versus the people that aren't, even the people that we met in Florida. You could tell the people that have habits, the people that don't.
Right. No, you can. And I think coming back to the psychology aspect in the on-site event was we hit so hard on psychology and about ourselves. We were really breaking down on, the market maker and the psychology of the market makers and what the market maker needs to make, but then we also dove backwards into psychology of ourselves. Why are we, managing a position? Why are we getting out 25 cents when they need to make a dollar? I think not a lot of us really thought of that process. Really, divided them into two: is the psychology of the market and the psychology of ourselves. Because you can have a great grasp on the psychology of the market and what the market maker needs to do. And your game plans could be phenomenal based on tape reading 1 through 4. You have a great grasp on the psychology of the market, but it comes back to yourself as what's your own psychology? Are you really getting a grasp of, okay, I cut my winners too short. I never let them go to my price target. And that's a psychological question you have to ask yourself. You have to ask why. Is that because I'm too money focused? Because there's various reasons behind that. So I think the psychology of oneself and the psychology of market I almost view them as two different aspects.
You just hit the nail on the head. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. If you're cutting your winners too short, more than likely you haven't seen a lot of success. So now you're thinking about money.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a way once you find out the problem, like I said before, it needs to become your biggest problem needs to become your biggest focus.
Mm.
And it's not the stock market. The stock market works the same every single day.
Yep.
Our prints never lie. And when I say our prints don't lie. That's why most people don't tape read, because there's no sexy line that they can see
Nope.
that tells them exactly what to do. Okay. You actually have to understand. And then, like you said, once you understand that concept, you have to understand that knowing what a stock is going to do doesn't mean you can trade it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're knowing what a stock needs to do and you're not trading it well, it's not something with the stock, it's something with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really digging into that. And like you said, it's not one and the same.
Yeah, and I feel like on site it was almost like sitting down with the psychologist, right? The teacher was
Well,
like, you
actually,
already
that's my focus. So,
Yeah. The teacher was already like, you already know how to do this. You've taken the classes. There's nothing new to learn here. You already know. But the real aspect was just diving into ourselves in the whole onset. That's what I really felt like is like I was sitting in a room with a trading psychologist is truly what it felt like. And just as a collective, we in a group, dove into what are the biggest root causes of, big like the main problems that the group has.
and the main problems the group has is the main problems everyone has.
Exactly. We all go through the same things.
That's what we found.
Yeah.
I know on my one-on-ones. So afterwards, after everyone told me what their biggest problem was, for the most part, I didn't even talk to anyone about what they said to me. It was
Mm-hmm.
really coming down to who they were, because I've been all those people. And that's the thing that we all go through this terrible journey. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Not terrible, bittersweet journey. Like I said, if you could see the scars that were all over my arms, my body based off of trading, we all have them. And there's not something, we all want everything to just be fixed tomorrow, to be a great trader tomorrow. But really, what it comes down to, again, is just kind of chipping
Mm-hmm.
away at that psychology and getting a little bit better each day. And then all of a sudden, after a bunch of days, whether it be 2 months, 3 months, whatever the time frame is, all of a sudden you're there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that light bulb goes off. But it's all those days of just chipping away at getting better at how to trade what we see.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and on-site or just courses in general, right? We every time we do courses, they're all using a live market. So every time we do a class, you're breaking down the psychology of market makers through the tape. That's just a quick summary of all we ever do, and it's consistent. 1 through 4 is all psychology, but at on-site, the biggest difference for those who didn't go, that were on the fence or the borderline, is the psychology of oneself and truly understanding and coming in as a group, as a collective, and being with people around you that have the same issue. You can collaborate and talk about the things that they did to overcome those issues. I just think, again, like it's sitting at a desk with a trading psychologist, and it's all about your psychology, not about the market psychology. So for those
Mhm.
that are interested in a future one that down the road, I would highly suggest it. everyone that went has just had phenomenal things to say about it, and not just things to say. I mean, their words, the things they say, their trades that they're making, or it's just night and day difference.
It's actually, so the biggest thing is the results.
That's what
Because
it
at the
is.
end of the day, that's what we're here for, is results. Now,
Exactly.
there's no place for money within trading,
Hmm.
but the only reason we trade is for money. We're not going to wake up in the morning just to play this video game.
Yeah.
You know what
Gotta.
I'm saying? The results themselves is just, it's the best way that I can put it. It's honestly like taking 6 months and packing it into a couple days.
Yeah, and it feels that way too, because I had a week to, I'm still recovering from it. I'm still like jotting notes down. I'm going back and reviewing notes from the sessions. I'm just like, it's just so interesting. It's just I'm still recovering from it in a good way though, in a very good way.
No,
So
of course.
I think that'll wrap it
And
up.
there's
Keep it.
something recovering to do too, because we do have fun as well.
Oh yeah, we went golfing, saw some gators, had a great time. So there's some play involved as well. So it's always a good time. But I think that'll wrap it up for us, Rich. Keep it a little shorter. Just people don't like spending an hour sitting at the computer. People's attention spans are awful nowadays. So I appreciate you coming on, and the face presence now. I'm sure everyone is going to love it. So vastly appreciate that, Rich.
Of course. And I look forward to doing a lot more in the
Mhm.
very near future.
All righty, Rich. Take care.